Alrighty, everybody. I think it is that time of the day. Looks like it is 11 o'clock Pacific over here. Just wanted to first and foremost just take a brief second, let everybody pile in here. But first and foremost, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today. I know all of you as event creators have a million things on your plate, and honestly, probably a lot more fun things we could maybe be doing than talking about Facebook or Instagram ads or marketing today. So I just wanted to let you know I appreciate you. Thank you for spending your time, and let's just give it a quick sec for everybody to pile in. Please let me know where you are listening in from today. I always love these to be, a good conversation. Ultimately, I want you walking away from here today with some great learnings. Whether you're using Facebook Ads Manager or looking at Eventbrite Boost, I ultimately want you to be walking away feeling empowered of how you could be marketing your events via Facebook and Instagram. So we'll just give it a quick sec. Let's let everybody pile in, and if anybody is in the chat, let me know where you're listening in from, and if the audio is coming through loud and clear. Just want to get a confirmation of that before we really dive into it today. And apologies in advance if it looks like I'm looking away from the screen. That is where the chat is, and then we also have a very slight delay on the YouTube chat. Haven't been able to figure it out this time, but we'll get it for the next one. Ronika, I hope I got that right. Ronika Jones here from Sacramento. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you spending it with us here today. And feel free, everybody, as well, to let me know. Perfect. I appreciate the audio confirmation, and ultimately, too, guys, as we go along, if I'm glancing over something really quickly, there's something I could explain in a little bit more depth or context to you, just please slow me down, ask questions. I want to make sure that everybody's getting something really valuable out of this today. We have Luisa from Moriela, Mexico. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But everybody, to just give you a brief agenda of what we are going to be talking about today. First and foremost, we're just going to basically kind of talk about event marketing, some of the challenges that a lot of us face, or previously I faced when I was actually running a lot of this myself. Then we're going to give you a brief overview of what exactly is Eventbrite Boost, if you've kind of heard about this. Then we'll actually dive into some very successful Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns to basically show you what the pros are actually doing from a strategy standpoint. And then fourth, we're basically going to walk through the process of how you can basically repeat the exact same thing for your events, see good performance from everything that we're doing, but we want to take a really good educational standpoint. So please, I'd love for you to ask questions, for glancing over something or anything like that, here for you at the end of the day. But let's just go ahead and jump into it. So, first and foremost, I feel like a lot of us, when we're talking about event marketing, it really feels like a challenge. And ultimately, if we're using all these different platforms, we've got all these different responsibilities, it can kind of sometimes feel overwhelming if, we're trying to really dive into it. You're a one man, a one woman, or, one person kind of show running the entire business, running everything from marketing to maybe ticketing, all of these different type things. Personally, when kind of I ran some of this stuff myself, it definitely felt a little hard, but our solution that we're trying to solve here is to really make event marketing not feel inaccessible to anybody of any level of expertise. And personally, some of the reasons why I think it's hard is a lot of times it kind of feels like we're just trying to squeeze that lemon to really get the fullest amount of our budget of what we're actually working with. In most cases, a lot of the kind of best in class tools when it comes to Facebook or Instagram marketing are either kind of too complex, too expensive, or kind of weren't specifically built for people like us within the event space. They were built for somebody over at Coca-Cola with a Harvard MBA. You got a $1 million ad budget to work with every single day, a huge team backing us, but that's not the position that most of us find ourselves in. And then, ultimately, if we do kind of dive into these, we just honestly might not have enough time in the day to actually learn some of these new skills and tools. You have so much else on your plate that, it can feel like a big responsibility trying to take something like Facebook Blueprint or a course to kind of dive into all this. And then, third, if we even kind of take that full plunge, jump into that pool, a lot of times it can feel like when we're looking at the results of what we ran, functionality and reporting might feel kind of segmented or fragmented, and we just kind of have a hard time understanding like what's actually going on, where are our dollars going, and kind of how is this actually making an impact for our events and our business and our brand. So ultimately what we've tried to do with Eventbrite Boost is basically make this a one-stop shop for everything that you need from a digital marketing perspective, primarily with a focus on Facebook and Instagram advertising for you to help market your events, whether you are a creator with big significant ad budgets, or whether you're somebody who's just simply looking for some free tools to actually leverage to kind of get your events off the ground. And just kind of briefly showing you, where exactly you can find this within Eventbrite. If you ever go into the Manage My Event section, for those of you that have created your events, you're kind of looking at all the different events that you've created. You can find this section under the Marketing tab up in the top left. So if you just look for that Marketing tab, and then you'll see kind of a variety of features here in this section for you to use. Now, to briefly kind of just talk about some of these, we're not going to go as in depth. Today's focus is primarily going to be regarding Facebook and Instagram advertising in that section of Boost. But just for all people who are looking for kind of free alternatives or free ways to start marketing your events, first and foremost, I'd recommend please, please, please use that Add Your Event to Facebook tool. Ultimately, the reason why Facebook events are so important, especially coming in this scenario, coming after COVID, where everybody's getting back to events at their own speed, what the Facebook event effectively allows you to do is, one, it helps you build a remarketing audience. So basically, if I come across your event and I'm in Facebook and I see kind of your upcoming event and I hit interested or going, I'm going to constantly be getting reminders from Facebook about the event so I don't forget about it. Our attention spans are so short nowadays that we might think we'd say, oh, I totally think about that event later down the road, but ultimately we kind of forget about it. So the add your event to Facebook feature is very, very important, as when you're publishing your event to Facebook, not only does it allow people to RSVP, so they're getting in the loop, but from also an advertising perspective, not only can you retarget to people that visit your events. So let's say, for example, you have 3,000 people RSVP to your event, or just even visit it. They don't have to kind of click a button. You can remarket to all of those individuals, which, if people are visiting that event, there's probably a pretty high likelihood that they are actually going to convert to ticket buyers compared to, somebody that doesn't really know who you are. And then additionally, you can use the data of these events to help you actually go after similar people in the future. So, let's say you had 10 Facebook events for your yoga type studio or something like that. You can basically use that data to help go after target audiences to find other people that are similar to, those that interact with your events or end up making those purchases. Now, the next feature we'll briefly talk about is the send an email campaign function. This is another free tool within Eventbrite that allows you to send very, very basic and kind of crafted email campaigns to kind of your prospects or your past purchasers, just to kind of keep them up to date on, what are the different events that you're throwing, what are all of the very exciting things that you have going on. And email marketing is always a pillar and a very, very essential tool out of any marketing process. So definitely make sure that you're using the email marketing tools. If you haven't already, I really would highly encourage them. And then lastly, what we're going to be talking about today is specifically advertising on Facebook and Instagram. Now, just to preface this and let you all know, this is a paid tool that requires a monthly subscription. And then, of course, you do need to pay for, whatever the cost of the ad would be. But we have a free 14-day trial for any of you to kind of pop in, get a free trial for your event to actually see, how would this marketing kind of aid me in the future? And, is this something that's really important or valuable to my business? So just wanted to address that before we jump in. And you have to do all this stuff, and then you realize, we honestly still have to pay for the ad campaign at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing that I'd like to start showing you with is actually the Eventbrite Boost interface for creating Facebook and Instagram ads. So if you've worked with Facebook Ads Manager before, you're going to realize this is really, really different. A lot of times, personally for me, when I started working in Facebook Ads Manager, it felt like a little bit of a maze that when I was trying to figure out the information that was most vital or important to me from a marketing standpoint, it kind of felt like a little bit of a scavenger hunt. So what we've really tried to do is basically almost create our version of the Facebook and Instagram ads interface specifically designed for event promoters in ways that's going to help save you time, help make you more money, and then also make it easier for you to actually understand and digest the data that you're looking at. So to give you a little bit of context, the campaign that we're looking at right here was a Facebook event RSVP campaign. So you're like, Sam, why do you keep talking about Facebook events? It's important is they're actually a really, really valuable type of ad that you can run. So if you publish your event to Facebook, you can actually run an ad that sends and promotes that Facebook event. And it's, in my opinion, probably one of the best types of ad campaigns that you can be running, especially if your demographic is a little bit older and on the Facebook side. But this ad that they were running right here was one of those ads for one of their upcoming festivals out in New Zealand. Of course, one of the only places on the planet Earth that was having festivals and throwing events in the last, 6 months to a year. But just a couple things about this campaign. You'll kind of notice up towards the top, we're really trying to showcase the metrics that are most important for your understanding of your ad front and center. So this creator right here spent, around 275 bucks on this ad campaign. They got back, around a 20x return on ad spend. If you run Facebook ads too and you do not see this return on ad spend, do not be hard on yourself. this completely is almost a biased example that we have here too of a really high performer, but I just wanted to show you exactly what this high performer is doing it so you can emulate this for your business and your organization as well. And up towards the top, we're basically trying to show you metrics, how many people are you kind of getting in front of based on the people that actually interact with your ad, kind of how many people are you getting into that remarketing funnel that, might not be likely to purchase now, but could be more likely to actually purchase at a point later on down the road. And we're trying to show you, what's the amount of RSVPs, clicks, all of those different various metrics. And then scrolling down a little bit further, this might kind of look like a lot of information that we're looking at first, but basically you could think about it that kind of each row or kind of column that we have here, each row basically just represents a different group of individuals that we're targeting with our ad campaign. And normally when we run an ad campaign, there are going to be some audiences or some people that we choose to target that are actually going to purchase a ticket or register at a way cheaper cost than others. The analogy I could give here is, when we're investing in stock portfolios, we invest in things like ETFs or mutual funds that kind of hedge our risk, so we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. A lot of times when you just run an ad campaign on Facebook and you're only using one audience, if that audience hits and we bet it all on black and it does well, everybody's happy at the end of the day. But ultimately, if it doesn't do well, we don't really have anything else to kind of back up the performance of what's going on. So one really unique thing about Eventbrite Boost that helps you get a better return from the campaigns you're running is we have our own version of budget optimization. It's basically a fancy word for saying every 6 to 12 hours, we take a look at how your audiences are performing. If we notice one group is actually, purchasing at a cheaper cost or RSVPing or interacting, we actually shift budget from one audience to another to help you get a better return for your investment without you actually having to do manual optimization. So that's, one kind of really big difference of our platform compared to something like Facebook with where their optimization sometimes tends to spend a little bit too much on people that honestly might purchase anyway from your business. And then lastly, down towards the bottom, we're just kind of looking at the ad creative this person used. We've really tried to build this platform out to allow you to A/B test too. So if you have a couple different creatives, one image, one video, you kind of don't know which one's going to do better. We've really tried to build this platform out to help give you information on, what actually is most effective and impactful for your customer base. So that's just kind of a brief overview of, kind of the general interface, but I would love to hop in and actually, help show you how to create some campaigns. Now for everybody in the chat, I would love to know too, what types of events are you guys throwing? I want to make this kind of specific to some of you as well to give you some real solid advice as well. So it'd be really helpful for me if some of you could let me know what different types of events are you running, just to give me a little bit of a creative inspiration here today. And if you have any questions too at this point, or there's something I could better clarify before we move on, just feel free to drop it in the chat. Always happy to help. And I'm just going to get this swapped over to my account that I have right here. Awesome, y'all. So I think we should be good. And if there is a little bit of a lag on the chat, sorry I haven't seen your question or any comments or anything there yet. But kind of diving into actually creating campaigns, one unique thing that you'll notice when you hop into Boost, this is probably the first thing that you're going to see in the Facebook and Instagram ad section, but you're going to see this kind of, funky, like Frankenstein looking graph that we have right here. And ultimately, when it comes to actually running ad campaigns for your events, literally half the battle is just choosing what campaign do I run and when's the right time to actually run that campaign. The biggest mistakes that I see people make is simply maybe spending way too much on the wrong type of ad campaign when they're in a period where their customers aren't actually going to purchase. And Little Italy of LA, cultural street fairs, galas, outdoor farmers markets. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So getting back to it, ultimately, the biggest mistake I see a lot of people make is just we don't know what type of campaign to run and we don't know when to actually run it. And we've really tried to solve that problem with Eventbrite Boost with actually automating, what people like me who've basically worked with all different kinds of events, whether it be small or massive festivals, and my recommendations I normally give to individuals to actually automate this into the product. So when you hop in here to build a campaign and you select one of your upcoming Eventbrite events, we'll actually help suggest a campaign objective that we think you should be running based on where you are and when your customers are normally purchasing. So this is actually a graph that kind of helps you understand, when on average do my customers normally purchase or register for my events. So, for an example, in this case, kind of if we blew all of our budget in this middle halfway there period where we honestly don't maybe see a lot of purchases, that might not be the most impactful use of our budget. I've seen a lot of people, and maybe part of the reason you might have had a bad experience with running Facebook or Instagram ads for your event is maybe you just spent too much in the wrong time. We always want to be taking a step back and actually, showing a little bit of understanding and trying to empathize with our buyer's perspective. Put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself the honest question: if I was, going to possibly attend this event, would I be likely to purchase right now, or are there other factors that might actually cause me to wait, a lot later down the road? Let's take something like an online event, for example, like this exact webinar that you're watching. We all know this isn't going to sell out. There's no capacity restrictions or anything like that. So, why would we spend a bunch of money advertising if we're 2 months out from this? It might be more impactful to kind of run an ad in the last couple days leading up to it. So, we've really tried to help build something here that'll suggest, what should you run, when should you actually run it, and we can help give you kind of a launch pad to get off the ground. So let's go ahead and let's kind of do the example of, the event that we were working with as well. But as you continue to watch, feel free to drop the different types of events that you have, just so I can have some specific kind of targeting examples, kind of relevant to what you're actually doing. So we will recommend a strategy, and we'll kind of tell you, based on, where your event is, what type of campaign you should run. But I'd just like to take a kind of brief second to give you the why of why we recommend. When I was first learning this platform for the first time, starting to build ads, everybody told me run this type of ad, but I ultimately wanted to understand why would I be running this type of ad, and I want to give that to you today as well. So normally the two kind of main objectives that most people run within the event space is one, this thing that says get people to buy tickets on your website. If you've ever heard of the lingo link click ad or conversion ad on Facebook, it's just kind of a fancy way for saying we're running an ad directing people straight to your ticketing pages or your main website, normally wherever it is easiest for them to actually make that purchase. Now, these ads are one of the most effective whenever you're in a period where your customers are actually purchasing. So, to give you a little context, when I started using this platform, I was working in a concert venue up in the Berkeley area in Berkeley, California, a 1350 cap concert venue, and I was running all their ads through here. So, normally for concert venues, they sell the majority of their tickets within the first couple weeks of an on sale, and then maybe 2 to 3 weeks kind of leading up to the event. There's kind of like, looks like a camel hump a little bit. So we normally ran this type of campaign when people were likely to purchase when we initially announced our event and put it on sale, and then we'd run this same type of campaign in the week kind of leading up to that actual event. Now, let's say, for example, if we're in like the middle of our event period, this might not be the campaign we'd want to run, as it's normally sending people straight to the ticketing pages. If we're taking a step back and empathizing with our buyers, honestly, if I see the events 2 months out, I might not even click on that ad. I'm just going to be like, oh, I'll see the ad later. I'll maybe remember the event. But honestly, most of us don't really actually do that in hindsight. So one of the types of ads that I've really been recommending to individuals as of late is this RSVP to your event on Facebook. So why I'd been talking a lot about the event response, or add your event to Facebook using that free feature, is you can actually run campaigns that promote your Facebook event. And the benefit of these is, think of them as the best of both worlds for driving engagement, building remarketing audiences, having retention, but also selling tickets as well. Because people can really easily find the link to buy tickets, and normally it has embedded checkout so they can easily purchase within the Facebook event. So it almost is technically like the same amount of clicks as sending them to your website. But if we're in the impression and understanding that these individuals are actually not likely to purchase at this point in time, just by having them visit your Facebook event, they're now in your remarketing funnel for you to remarket to. Whereas if we were running an ad directing straight to their website and they weren't likely to purchase, you're probably going to miss out on having them in the funnel to remarket to them later down the road. So honestly, if your demographics on Facebook, for the most part, you're just looking for a nice happy medium, I might suggest running something like the Facebook RSVP campaigns. Now, just one quick note, there is kind of a current outstanding issue that we have with Facebook at the moment, kind of preventing some of these events from loading. So any of you that use the platform, or any of you that try to hop in and run one of these right now, our apologies here. If that's being sorted, we'll get it sorted as fast as possible. So we're kind of waiting on that at the moment. But you can always run an alternative type of ad that sends people straight to your ticketing pages, but just wanted to give you that context too as well. So for today's example, let's roll with kind of the recommended objective of sending people straight to our ticketing pages. Now, within the next step, we're simply choosing, what's the account we want to pay for this campaign with. So those of you unfamiliar with how running Facebook ad campaigns and paying for them works is you have something called a Facebook ad account. You could almost think of this as like basically your credit card that you use to pay for ads. It's a little account you set up with Facebook, you hook a payment method up to it, and if we want to run a $50 campaign, that's where the cost of that ad campaign is going to get billed to. And then lastly, after that, we're choosing what's the Facebook page we want to run our ad from, what's the Instagram. Normally, if the Facebook and Instagram are linked, it should automatically pull it. And then lastly, if you know what a pixel is and you're using multiple, you could select it. If you don't know what it is, don't stress it as we do this automatically. But just to briefly talk about it, if you've ever gone to a website, looked at a t-shirt or a pair of shoes, then later you're in Facebook or Instagram or some site and you're like, I can't escape this pair of shoes. I'm seeing it everywhere. The Facebook pixel is the culprit for why that happens. It basically functions for a couple of different purposes. One is remarketing, so you can generally like toss it on your website. Anybody that's opted into tracking, which that's actually been changed kind of dramatically by some of the recent Apple and kind of Facebook updates of people opting out of privacy tracking. But if somebody's opted into tracking, you can basically easily remarket to them. And then second, this is also a mechanism that helps allow you to track purchases or registrations that result from your ad campaigns, so you could begin to kind of have like a buyer acquisition cost essentially. But if you don't know what that is, don't stress it. You generally automatically have one. You don't really need to do much of anything. We handle it automatically for you. And the next step, we'll be pulling in the location targeting of the Eventbrite event selected. So you might not even need to put anything in here. My event is basically, just in the entire United States. So if you leave this box blank, it just hits the US by default. But you always can, just enter in kind of any different market that you're trying to hit, or you can even use this button to select locations from previous ad campaigns that you might have ran. And when it comes to the age range, y'all, don't try to beat Facebook at their own game. I've tried this, and after around $100,000 worth of a sample size and spend of A/B testing this, there was a very like no statistically significant difference in terms of Facebook handling the optimization or me trying to beat it. In all honesty, it probably would have been better if I just had all my budget going towards one ad that Facebook could properly optimize. So just think of this as a lower bound. You generally don't need to set an upper bound. It'll figure that out for you. But if your event is 18 and up, or it's an all ages venue, or 21 and up, or especially if you mention liquor or you are serving liquor or anything related to that, you generally want to run it to 21 and up, as your ad might get auto flagged, even if there's like a beer in the creative. They're like kind of like hawks on that. And jumping over to the next step, this, in all honesty, in my opinion, was kind of the hardest step for me when I was first learning it, which is the step of where you define the targeting for your campaigns. So we kind of have two different versions of this. One for you kind of advanced Facebook users that use all the crazy different types of audiences. We've got all that, and it's a way better interface that'll make your life a lot easier. But for those of you that are getting new, we've tried to basically create something that allows you to take advantage of some of these really difficult to build Facebook audiences without having to do this. So normally the type of targeting that most of us generally work with when it comes to Facebook and Instagram advertising, or if you ran an ad before, is something called interest, behavior, or demographic targeting. So basically all we're kind of doing here is just typing out, different things related to our events. And this is the section, guys, too. If you haven't commented already, please let me know the different types of events that you are throwing, just so I can give you a little feedback here. So like getting back to Little Italy of LA's thing, cultural street fairs. Like you could try typing out something just initially like street fair. You can't target everything under the sun, which, we typed out street fair in this section and it didn't actually show up. Let's maybe try something like cultural fair and see what we get. Doesn't look like we have that one as well. So generally, you're just trying to type out a couple different things here to kind of get some inspiration on like, what could I even target in this section? In this case, we might be able to try something like fairs. Facebook definitely has to have something on fairs. That's even crazy. The only fairs we have here are Scholastic Book Fairs, National Career Fairs, or Hong Kong Development Council. We might want to even try something like outdoor events here in this section. You're basically just trying to type out different various topics related to your event. That's outdoor. Let's try outdoor events instead. See what we get in this section. You're just generally trying to type out various things related to your event. So even just like, outdoors, you're just trying to kind of type things out, see what you can even target in the first place, and then just go ahead and select a couple things. Let's just say, for example, I'm doing like an outdoor recreational class, like something on hiking or something like that. I kind of might start by typing out something like outdoor. kind of getting a feel for, what various things are even targetable on Facebook. It's really weird. Even massive things that you think like definitely there should be enough data to target this, a lot of times aren't targetable. For example, like Billie Eilish, top 5 artists here in the United States right now actually can't be targeted as an interest, but we can hit Billie Jean, Billie Holiday, and Billie King for some odd reason. So generally within this section, just type out kind of some main like kind of topics related to your events, get a feel for what can even be targeted, and then just start, adding some stuff in. So I might add like outdoor recreation. I might add in something like hiking here in this section. And you can see that some of these are like demographics or interest. So in this top section, this would actually be going after people that like technically say they're employed at like hiking places or something like that. I don't know, somebody that works at REI or something, something like that. So we're just generally trying to type out some stuff in this section. Let's try outdoor. Let's see if we get something else here in this section as well. Is this all kind of making sense so far, guys? Feel free to type like a 1 in the chat if it makes sense, 2 if it doesn't, and then let me know your questions that you have too for the interest targeting. We're just generally trying to type out like what are things that we think our customers would actually be interested in. So we'll just enter some stuff in here. If it's a family-friendly event, a really good type of targeting that I like to use is actually the parent demographic targeting. So you could always type out parent. It's a little creepy. I think the reason they have this Facebook is because everybody posts on Facebook when their kid is born and makes an event of it. But basically, if you wanted to target like parents with kids in a certain age range, if it's a kid event or something like that, we can add that in there. And that is personally like one of my favorite for family friendly events, as it generally tends to work extremely well. So you'd want to enter in a couple interests here in this section, or behaviors or demographics. And then once you actually have a couple in here, feel free to just use the drop down and you can actually get other recommendations from Facebook. So, you don't have to exhaust the entirety of your brain. Just get a little bit in there and try to get some suggestions. They sometimes can be hit or miss, and the quality of these suggestions improve if you actually have more kind of interest within the section. But, we could simply click in here and then go ahead and choose a couple more of these within this section. And generally, there's no right or wrong answer to how many interests you have, but you always just want to be trying to keep in mind, like, what's the size of the audience that I'm hitting? If I'm out in Los Angeles, the United States, and I'm only targeting an audience of like 1,000 people, odds are I'm totally going to exhaust that audience. We're going to see pretty poor performance. So generally, I try for these to, at least it's context dependent on your area. At the very least, if I'm working in a place like LA or something like that, I'm generally trying to get like an interest audience of anywhere between like 100 to 200,000 people or greater in this section. The reason for that is just giving a little wiggle room for actually having Facebook optimize that ad. So there's no right or wrong answer. Like you don't have to have 10 of these. You don't have to have 5. It's honestly just prioritize quality over quantity and make sure you have a good sized audience for what you're including. And then just down towards the bottom, one of the unique things about Boost is we actually help make remarketing really easy for you. If you wanted to do remarketing within Facebook Ads Manager, and basically accomplish what we're doing in this platform, you need to go into your audience section. You need to build around like 5 different types of they're called Facebook custom audiences. And then you have to go to a separate section to include every single one of these in your campaign. And personally, that was a little hard for me to do. It's very time consuming. So basically what we're doing automatically is if you don't even select anything, we're pulling in the people that interact with your Facebook page and your Facebook events. So another reason, routing back to why Facebook events are important, is we get 2,000 people to interact with that event or visit. That's another 2,000 people that we can automatically remarket to with the campaign. And additionally, if you have an Instagram, it has to be an Instagram business account. It's just you can have different types of Instagram accounts, like a creator account or a business. For you to be able to leverage the targeting perspective, you simply just need to make sure that you are using the Instagram business account that we have here. So I can go ahead and choose my Instagram business account, and then getting back to that kind of like remarketing pixel that we were talking about, feel free to also select that pixel if you happen to have one in this section. Now, just to briefly show you, for some of you more, for those of you that actually might be throwing concerts or comedy-related events or anything like that, we actually have a tool that helps you kind of create these interests a little quicker. When I was doing interest targeting within a concert venue, what I actually did was I'd go to Google or Spotify, write down a list of a ton of different related artists to the person that I was marketing, and then type them in one by one. This audience generally took me 15 to 20 minutes to build, as I'd enter 50 to 100 different artists, and I could only even target 10 of them in the first place. So we built out a tool that all you need to do is type out the name of the artist. Generally, you want to be putting in bigger artists, as Facebook doesn't have data to target people like under like 100,000 followers on Spotify in most cases. But let's say, for example, we're doing like a Beatles cover band. We could add in the Beatles here, and you can see we'll automatically build you this Facebook interest audience, helping you target artists that are similar to the one that you entered. You can always enter in multiple artists here within this section as well to help you build that audience. But it's kind of just a shortcut to take the difficulty out of this process. You can always add in extra stuff or get rid of it as well, but just briefly wanted to show you. And this does work for comedy too. So you can put in, comedians, you'll get data on that as well. And now before we kind of jump over from the targeting section, I just want to give you a preview of the advanced targeting section. We're actually working right now to kind of automate a lot of this process to help you take advantage of things like A/B testing and additional audiences. But just to give you a little bit of kind of the thought process behind it, we have a good audience mix right here. We're still targeting, this interest audience helps us go after people that, are unfamiliar with our business, brand new people, and then this group remarketing audience kind of helps us target, our past like page engagers, event engagers, IG account engagers, and if you also have your account set up the correct way, this will actually use something called the Eventbrite group remarketing audience that actually automatically includes an audience of your past purchasers and your past buyers. And from the data that we've seen of hundreds of thousands of campaigns, this is by far the highest revenue or highest attendee driving audience that you can possibly use. And we have really, really good data to support that, individuals for the vast majority of all events, once they attend your event a couple times and they really like it, those are the same people that support you and come out time after time. But if I was critical of this audience mix, what we have right here is we only kind of have one audience going after new people. So we're kind of putting all our eggs in one basket here. And to take advantage of the budget optimization that our platform has is you could always add in another audience. One of the best ones that I like to use, especially if you've been on Eventbrite for a long amount of time, have a lot of past buyer data, is you can build something called a lookalike. If you're unfamiliar with what a lookalike is, you can think of that video of like the meme of the two Spider-Mans pointing at one each other and they look the exact same. Kind of the exact same thing that's going on here. So the way lookalikes work is you give Facebook a little bit of data, it analyzes the people in that pool of data, and helps spit you back a brand new audience of people that are very, very similar. So we could build a lookalike off of our past purchasers. So it's taking the data from people that bought from us in the past, using that data to help us go after brand new people. And this is generally one of the best audiences that you can even use to help you go after new people. We also have something called smart audiences in our platform, which is Eventbrite's own version of lookalike audiences. That if you are a new creator, even a more established event creator and looking for another audience to add, this audience will help you target individuals that have bought for other similar Eventbrite events in your area, and then also use that data for a lookalike to help you go after brand new people in the area as well. So that's a really exciting thing that we've been working on that actually has shown some really nice promising results so far. And we've really tried to build this platform as well for speed and efficiency. And a lot of times, if you're throwing your event in the same location, you're throwing pretty similar types of events or recurring events, odds are like 90% of your data is going to be the same from campaign to campaign. You might just be changing up a schedule and changing up a budget. So we've designed this that you can easily save any mix of audiences as a set to have it automatically pull in or kind of duplicate any campaign. So maybe instead of reinventing the entire wheel, you're essentially just kind of duplicating a past campaign, almost like fill in the blanks, changing a couple boxes instead, and then you are all set to rock. So one thing that I personally did was I actually saved sets or different campaign templates for all the different types of campaigns I'd run or different genres and things like that. So if I needed to get a campaign up and running, I basically had a template. I hit a duplicate button. I maybe filled in, 4 or 5 boxes instead of, 15 to 20, and then boom, we're ready to rock. So this is pretty much all I wanted to mention. The reason I'm showing you this advanced one is it just lets you have a little bit more control of, where you're running your ads, different types of audiences. But let's just take a brief pause here for me to get a little bit of a drink real quick and answer any questions that you may have on the targeting step. Is personally, I know this one was the hardest one for me, and it's a lot of information here. So I just wanted to take a quick pause. Anybody have any questions on targeting or anything I could help with here today? And if you think of something and it comes to you a little later, feel free to drop it as well. I'm going to move on. Not sure if there is a lag or anything here, but we'll get back to it if so. And then in this section, we basically are defining, when do we want to start running our ad? When do we want the ad to run? You also can get a recommended schedule and budget for us if you just don't want to put too much thought into it. We want to get the campaign running ASAP. And then towards the bottom, this is where we specify the budget. So if I wanted to spend, maybe a total budget of $100 a day, just click total, enter 100, and then I'm all set. Doesn't really make a difference total between daily. It's just all about, what makes the most sense to you from kind of a budget tracking perspective, essentially. And the last section that we have here is this is simply where we build the design of what our ad actually looks like. So this is by far the last step. So normally what you're probably going to do is you all you're doing is changing up the event that you might be running things to within the first step, or maybe duplicating the past campaign, running it to the same event, just maybe changing up the campaign objective. Odds are you're probably running it from the exact same account, so you never need to change anything here. If your events are just in a single location, you're probably not even changing anything here whatsoever. Once you find an audience mix that works well for you, maybe you're not really even changing much in this audience section as well. Maybe all you're doing is kind of changing up a schedule and a budget and a new ad. So then we're only kind of focusing on maybe like 2 steps instead of the other like 6 total steps that we have right here. So in this section that we have right here, we're pulling in the image that's associated with your Eventbrite event. So if that's the one you want to rock with, don't need to change it or anything like that. But if you wanted to add in an image or a video, you also can do A/B testing here. So like let's say, we had this image here, we wanted to test, is this one gonna perform a little bit better or stack up better against the other one that we're running? You can A/B test any portion or anything of your ad whatsoever. But in all honesty, y'all, when it comes to A/B testing, please just stick to the image or video, especially if you're not working with a big budget. And the reason for this is kind of a similar reason to what can happen if you add too many audiences or you go overboard is, let's say we have a $100 budget and we set up 50 different ad variations. The way that these campaigns work on Facebook is your budget basically equates to reach. So if we're spending around $10 a day on an ad, normally, give or take, we'll probably reach anywhere between, 1,000 to maybe 2,000 people. That can be smaller if it's a really expensive, small remarketing audience. But generally, when you're spending, that spend equates to how many people you're reaching with your ad. The more people you reach with your ad, the better Facebook can actually optimize it. So if we add in a bunch of variations, you could think about it that we're just spreading our budget super, super thin, and we're kind of constricting Facebook's ability to actually figure out, what really is working here. So if there's anything I could give you from an A/B testing standpoint, just stick to the images or videos. Probably the most impactful. That's the only thing our really short attention spans pay attention to nowadays. So just make sure that you maybe, if you have it, you could A/B test stuff in there. Also, in the past, Facebook used to be a little bit funky about having text in your ads. You're totally fine with it now. They realized everybody in the event space, we don't have anything else to work with other than text flyers a lot of times. So feel free to have text on your kind of images to your heart's content. We also pull in a little info from the Eventbrite event you select for the post text, or kind of like the info from the Facebook event. But in all honesty, y'all, please feel free to delete this, and I'd highly encourage you to delete this and write something on your own that is far more creative and far more engaging. We as humans can see when an ad copy or something looks like it was written by a robot from miles away. And actually, there are some kind of crazy AI platforms, not remembering the name off the top of my head, but they can actually like automate copywriting for you that sounds really close to a human. So you could always use one of those if you don't want to think of it yourself. But the main important things to get across is like, what's any sense of urgency? If we are having a ticket price increase or tickets are about to sell out, our customers aren't going to know that unless you explicitly tell them. So make sure you get that across in the ad to indicate a sense of urgency if there is one. Make sure you let people know a little bit about, what's the event or what's going on, where it's happening, and maybe when it's happening. Those are kind of the main things that you want to hit and address at least somewhere in your ad. You don't need to be redundant about it, but just like give people context so that they know what they're actually getting into, and that's going to increase the likelihood they click on your ad, interact, and convert at the end of the day. And then link headline, it's just, sometimes what I did back in the day was like name of the event, dash location, or dash date. It's all up to preference. And normally as we get a little further, link description doesn't even show up in half the ad campaigns nowadays. So feel free to, just leave this as the default. And if you are selling ticketed events, I'd encourage use that buy tickets button, as that is by far the one that we've seen is actually the most effective and something kind of unique that we have to this platform. And I'd say the last thing to maybe mention here, you can always get different variations or previews of the different variations of where your ad is actually running here. Make sure you have your ad blocker off too, as if you have your ad blocker on, these technically are ads, so they're going to get blocked. And lastly, if you have specific images or videos for different network placements. So let's say, for example, this is a really nice landscape looking image for maybe Facebook and Instagram feeds, but we need something different for stories. You can go over to the story section, change up the image that you're using or the crop or anything on a per placement basis. And y'all, that pretty much is it. That is the very last step of actually setting up the campaign. You always can save things as a draft if you're not ready to get launched live. And this add tags feature, kind of think about it as like an internal hashtag. If we were going to do, a bunch of different campaigns, we could add, something in here. And this allows us to easily make PDF reports, kind of aggregating all the data of all the campaigns we ran. So if you need to give that to, your the management or anything like that, it is very easy to do so. And then it's always, you can save campaigns as a draft. So let's just pretend I saved this one as a draft. I saved this one as a draft last week, so we should have this in this section as well. But basically, it's really easy for you to simply hit a duplicate button, copy the entire campaign, and then maybe all we're doing is changing up a couple buttons here. So we really tried to build this in a way that makes it easy and accessible for you to not only run these ads, understand the data, but as you spend a little bit more time and invest in this process, it should get a lot easier for y'all to actually run this. So everybody, that was pretty much everything I had to talk about today. Just wanted to ask if there were any questions, anything I could better clarify, any better ways that I could be helping you, or information to maybe talk about for future sessions. And we didn't have as big of a group in here today as we did last time, but for those of you that watched and tuned in and especially paid attention for a long period of time, I just wanted to applaud you and thank you, as I know that was a lot of data. It's a lot to soak in, but I hope this helped you walk away with some pretty good and valuable information, even if you're not using this platform and just looking for, even ways to market your events on Facebook. We just want to make sure that we're sharing this information with you and kind of helping you feel empowered at the end of the day. We'll just give it one more quick sec, but everybody, that was pretty much everything that I had for today. Thank you again once for your time. My name has been Sam from the Eventbrite Boost team. I really appreciate it, and we'll be back here next week doing the same thing. So if you have any questions, something comes to you a little bit later down the road, or you need to get in touch, you feel free to hit the help button and hit us up here. Have an excellent rest of your day, an amazing week. Stay blessed, everybody. Take care.